Well, that was a short break. Welcome back, everyone, to week 6 and 7 recaps of the college football season. Let's just say that the weirdest 2 weeks so far this season occurred. While there were a lot of questions that were answered during these 2 weeks, there was also a lot of chaos that was brought as well. Welcome to Groupies, a little video series where I recap all of the shenanigans that happened in the G5 world of college football. Because even though I was gone for the last week, it didn't stop college football from being as chaotic as it is. Now, recapping 2 entire episodes into one is not possible, but I will give a quick recap of what happened the week before last Saturday. Week 6 certainly delivered a lot of interesting games, and that is when all the teams in the G5 world played their conference games. There weren't any real high-stakes games when it comes to making the playoffs, but in terms of conference championships, there definitely was. It included games like Western Kentucky versus Delaware, San Jose State versus New Mexico, Ohio versus Ball State, Texas State versus Arkansas State, and Coastal Carolina versus Old Dominion, just to name a few. In terms of eliminations, there were 5 teams eliminated that week, bringing us down to our final 8 team, and those teams were UAB, FIU, Rice, Boise State, and UL Monroe. The first 3 teams were 2 lost teams already, with the other 2 being knocked out by Power 4 opponents. And as for Boise State, the preseason ranked G5 champion of last year, they were officially eliminated when they were knocked out by Notre Dame. Now, with the Groupies repeat champion out of the question, the teams that were in danger are Toledo, Hawaii, New Mexico, App State, and Texas State, all being 2 lost teams. The number of undefeated teams did not change, with Memphis becoming the first team eligible to make a bowl, following a 45-7 win over Tulsa to become 6-0. And that is really what was missed from week 6. If you take a look at my community tab, I also posted the conference standings, albeit just the top teams from those conferences. But for now, we are back to normal. And as for week 7, there are 20 significant games to go through. Some games unfortunately got left out here despite how competitive they were, but I can't cover everything. Now that we are in that point of the season where weekday football is being normalized, let's get right to it. On Wednesday, we kick off with the banger between Missouri State and Middle Tennessee. Well, Missouri State is just starting out, and they're not in the running for the Conference USA Championship. There's still a lot to prove, but they're starting off on bad fortunes as their starting quarterback is out. They'll have to rely on freshman quarterback Deuce Bailey. It turns out that the dude can ball, but Middle Tennessee wasn't going to make it easy. The game did favor Missouri State most of the time, with some form of control beginning near the end of the first half. The score of 19-13 would hold before Middle Tennessee would get ahead with the score early in the fourth. A field goal for the Bears looked like it might have ended the game, but it gave Middle Tennessee enough time to get down the field. But Deuce Bailey would throw for over 275 yards for 1 touchdown. Vasiato would also throw for 2 touchdowns, but he also had 2 fumbles in the process, one of which Missouri State converted for a touchdown. While Missouri State wasn't perfect either, it was mistakes like that that gave the Bears the win. And even in their first FBS season, they're doing just fine as a program. Louisiana Tech versus Kennesaw State was expected to go a lot more differently. Louisiana Tech at this point was 4-1, and there was a good chance that they could have contended for the conference championship. The first quarter and a half went the Bulldogs' way, but something flipped afterwards. The Louisiana Tech offense would struggle greatly, gaining only 1 touchdown even with over 300 yards. Meanwhile, for Dexter Williams II, he would get 4 touchdowns on his own. The Owls' win wasn't immediate, it was gradual, but it was enough for this game to become a blowout. With the defense shutting down every opportunity the defense got, the Kennesaw State Owls moved up to 2-0 in the conference, now having double the wins they got from last season and delivering a surprise blow to the Bulldogs campaign. Also on Thursday, Tulane was trying not to get tripped up by the trap game that was against East Carolina. It started out favorable for the Green Wave in the first half, but East Carolina quickly made up ground in the third. They would go on to score 16 unanswered points in the third quarter alone to take the lead. Things seemed to be falling apart for Tulane, but one play changed everything.
plays. They had the ball, goal to go, and they fumbled it. Retzloff, play fake, taking a shot as his receiver, one-on-one coverage. There he goes! Zycar Lewis Jr.
With Jake Retzloff scoring his first touchdown of the day, East Carolina tied it up with a field goal, but that left Tulane having the ball with 5 minutes to go. They ran down as much clock as they could, and they got the touchdown. It was Jake Retzloff's second of the day. East Carolina wasn't given enough time to respond, and Tulane would remain undefeated in the American, now sitting at 5-1. Do not let the score on this one trick you into thinking it was close. Southern Miss definitely had control for most of this game. The game would start off competitively, but Southern Miss would run away with the score in the first half, leading to 28-7 at halftime. 2 touchdowns beat by Braylon Braxton, and 2 touchdowns by running back Jeffrey Pittman. Georgia Southern wouldn't give up though, and with Southern Miss looking very vulnerable on defense, they would try to rally back, at one point only being down by 10 in the fourth. Unfortunately for them, the difference in this game was the 3 turnovers by their quarterback. Even when they got the score to within 3, it was far too late at that point. Not the prettiest win ever, but in terms of rebuilding this team, they sit undefeated still in the Sun Belt. Friday is when things really got consequential. The 24th ranked South Florida Bulls will be taking on the undefeated North Texas Mean Green. Winning this game is an absolute must in terms of these teams' playoff hopes. If South Florida wins this game, they become the front runner in the G5 race. If North Texas wins, they'll be 6-0 for the first time in over 6 decades, and possibly ranked as well. The game was an absolute showdown, but plenty of mistakes were made. This included 5 turnovers in the first half, ending the respective drives. After halftime though, one of these teams would completely lock in. The Bulls would proceed to completely run over the Mean Green afterwards. As the defense locked everything up, Mestamaker would have his worst game of the season. In the first 5 games, the North Texas QB would throw for 0 interceptions, but here, he would throw for 3. Dark horses are always a fun thing to speculate about, but there's a reason why they are so rare. Because at any time, at any point, those that have established themselves as legitimate contenders can shut everything down. South Florida had now captured their 3rd significant win of the season, but not all hope is lost for the Mean Green though. If they could run the table from here on out, especially facing opponents like Navy, then there is still a chance that they make the conference championship. This game taught both sides a lot of valuable lessons. We'll see who maximizes their potential throughout the rest of the season. Oh, right then. So Fresno State was 5-1 heading into this game against Colorado State, who had yet to be an FBS opponent all season. They shut them down the entire game, and whenever Fresno State looked like they were going to have an opportunity, the Rams shut them down pretty quickly. As much as it is a good thing to have a quarterback like E.J. Warner, the withdrawals of having Fresno State's offensive line was shown here as well, as they lost a turnover battle with 4 turnovers to none. There were some people asking if Colorado State could be one of the weakest G5 teams this year, but some of those questions were certainly put to rest here, as the offensive line for Colorado State completely dominated, scoring the most points they've had so far this decade. It's a tale of volatility among both teams. They can either win such games or lose them. But this was certainly a consequential game, as Fresno State would now fall behind the undefeated leaders in the Mountain West. Now on to the Saturday games, and James Madison would also have to avoid a trap game, this time against the Louisiana Raging Cajuns. It's obvious the team was nowhere what it used to be like last year, but that didn't stop them from giving the Dukes a hard time. While both quarterbacks were able to produce over 250 yards of total offense each, it was the James Madison O-line that was the better one of the day. While they were more prone to turnovers and getting stuck on 3rd and 4th downs, they were able to clinch this win by clearing up most of their mistakes after the first quarter. And even when Louisiana led at the half, James Madison made sure to equalize pretty quickly. Louisiana was ultimately not able to capitalize as much, which is what led to a James Madison victory, now being 3-0 in the Sun Belt, and could potentially be a surprise candidate in the G5 race if things continue to go their way. If this game between Toledo and Bowling Green teaches us anything about the MAC this year, it's the unpredictability of it. Toledo was leading 21-0 near the end of the second. Gleason, Trayanum, and Vanderross III were all playing their part. But this sustainability must last through the 4 quarters in a game. Starting in the second half, the Bowling Green defense completely woke up, and Toledo were subjected to multiple 3-and-outs, not able to get the ball going anywhere. They would not score once on any of their 8 second-half drives. Meanwhile, the Falcons caught up, and after Toledo fumbled the ball in the 4th, it was a secured touchdown for the lead. The 24,000 in attendance just saw their team tie up the Battle of I-95 rivalry series with them. And with the shocking blow, they also knocked out the MAC's last hope for a team getting into the playoffs. For the now eliminated Rockets, this potentially knocked them out of the MAC championship, while Bowling Green goes up to 1-1. Washington State had a tall order ahead of them as they would have to play the number 4 Ole Miss on the road. For a team that struggled with the likes of Idaho, North Texas, and Washington, it really could have gone any way. To everyone's surprise, the 5-touchdown underdog Cougars were keeping Ole Miss at bay, scoring late in the first, and retaking the lead early in the third. In what was a very chaotic weekend for all of the college football world, Ole Miss was one of those teams that narrowly escaped. UNLV, in theory, had an easy game against in-conference opponent Air Force. There was a problem, however. Even with Air Force at a significant disadvantage, the defense was inconsistent on both ends. The lead of the game switched multiple times, at one point Air Force being up 21-10 and 34-29. The teams would then begin to trade touchdowns in the 4th. The breaking point being Air Force taking the lead with a minute to go, making it a 48-44 score. But UNLV had that 1 minute. And well, let's just say UNLV wasn't exactly being conservative about making plays.
Lee is in the backfield. Calandria to throw, now to scramble, and he's got the first down and more. Calandria to the 10, he's in the end zone! Touchdown Rebels!
Air Force would drive their way to the UNLV 23 to make way for a 40-yard field goal attempt.
UNLV blocked 2 kicks last week. Snap's good. The kick, he missed it! Oh. He missed it! UNLV survives!
Even with all the defensive struggles UNLV had gone through this season, this time giving up over 600 yards to the Falcons, the Dan Mullen Red Rebels have now reached 6-0, officially clinching their spot in the postseason. With another close loss again, Air Force falls to 1-5, but they showed the UNLV Rebels why they aren't invincible. They might be the most shaky team in the entire nation. The undefeated teams were not out of the woodworks though, as Navy would have to travel over to Temple. While Blake Horvath did Blake Horvath things, the Temple Owls were beginning to push Navy into a corner, and it seems like near the end of the 4th, they got them right where they wanted them. Temple quarterback Evan Simon had a very good day, producing 345 passing yards and a touchdown. Now with a minute up 7, all the defense has to do is hold Navy on a crucial 4th down to win it.
On 4th, who else? Horvath with a crease! There he goes! On 4th and 1, it's a house call for Horvath.
With that, Navy also improves to 6-0, repeating of what they just did in the early season in 2024. This time though, the road is much tougher for them, however, having to go against 3 ranked opponents, a previously undefeated team, and 2 trap games. With this type of performance against a pretty respectable Temple team, it isn't exactly ideal, but a chance to go on the run in the American is very real. And with having already half of their American schedule completed, for now, they sit on top of the American Conference, now starting to receive votes in the AP poll. The rest of the afternoon games was just as crazy as well. In possibly the sickles game of the year, Kent State destroyed UMass 42-6, breaking the longest winning drought against FBS opponents that went back as far as 2022, now being held by UMass. Facing their 5th Power 4 opponent this season, Oregon State was defeated by Wake Forest 39-14, now falling to 0-7. Marshall gets their first victory in the Sun Belt this season by destroying the playoff hopeful Old Dominion, scoring 48-24. That was behind O'Reilly Wilson's over 300 offensive yards and 4 touchdowns. Finally, Florida Atlantic continues their offensive dominance by defeating UAB 53-33. An underrated player in this game was the Florida Atlantic wide receiver Asad Wasim, who had over 100 receiving yards and a touchdown.